Love the unfolding? Help us keep it going. Every listen, like, and subscription to The Unfolding presented by the Love Foundation helps us do more than just share powerful stories. It helps fund real therapy sessions for Black women and girls across the country. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a podcast, you're helping us show funders that this work matters, that this community is growing, and our mental health support deserves real investment. So if you've been moved by what you've heard, take a second, like, subscribe, and share. It is a small gesture that can make a generational impact. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unfolding, presented by the Love Foundation. Today, we are joined by a longtime friend and collaborator to the Love Foundation. Truly, the work she does is integral to the work we do. She leads our group support series. Her name is Tatum Carter, and I'm just so excited for you guys to get to know her as we talk about September and it being Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So welcome, Tatum. Hi.
Hello, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I just love the work that we've been able to do the past few years with the Loveland Foundation. And I hope all the things continue as we move forward.
All the things, literally. I've known Tatum since I've started working here, and every time I've interacted with Tatum, truly has felt like just a warm light and a warm embrace. And I know we've never met face to face, we need to change. But just having actually we have.
We did the one
Yes.
time in New York.
Yes, and that was great. And so just having just you in this space and just excited to talk to you about something that is so often taboo and not talked about, especially in the Black community, and how it impacts Black women, and that being suicide, and just how it really is a big part of mental health that isn't discussed. And so I'm just excited to have you on and just have this conversation with so much grace and care and love as it deserves, and just information. So yeah, can you share just a little bit what brought you to this work and about suicide prevention, mental health advocacy?
Yes. Just taking it back to my personal journey is obviously, I'm a Black woman. I grew up in a culture that was filled with stigma and a lack of awareness on what mental health needed to be, how it showed up. And that's why I chose this field, was because I needed to go be what someone else wasn't for me. And then I became a therapist, and I was like, okay, this is my journey. And I realized that I was surrounded by therapists that did not understand or embrace the culture and the dynamics that are particular to Black women. And so I developed the mindset, I should say develop it, I was probably ingrained and taught to build what you need. So if it's not there, you have to go build it, which is why I became a therapist. So then as I went out into the world of being a therapist, I'm like, okay, I have to build what is not there. And that is connecting with other therapists and making sure that future Black women understand that there's a space for them to become therapists and to become the advocates and teaching education and awareness that is culturally competent. Because if we don't teach it, then it can't be taught.
No, that's so special that you said that, because part of the pillars of the Love Foundation, our mission is we are the ones we've been waiting for, and it's such a way that we're showing up for Black women in a way that's like you said, you weren't seeing that representation when you were seeking help, and so you, to pay it forward, you're creating I know personally, I've been a part of TAM support groups a couple of times, had the honor of joining it, and just the space that you're able to hold for so many Black women, non-binary individuals, of just you're here, you're seen, you're appreciated, you're valued. I'm just here to do intake and make sure everything's good. But I always walk away leaving so warm and heart filled, just wow, what a space where I just felt so safe, and truly safe, and really safe to express things that we're often told that we shouldn't be talking about, we should swallow, or we should mask, and just truly doing the work that is needed, and that we need it for ourselves. But no, thank you for sharing. From your perspective, what does Suicide Prevention Awareness Month mean for Black women?
For Black women in general, we are an overlooked population. It's not thought about of what does the Black woman need. It's thought about what does the other populations need it first, and then the Black woman comes somewhere down the line. And so just recognizing that we have to create safe spaces for them to speak and to share their experiences, um, and create a visibility and representation for them, because we are often not showcased until it's got a negative connotation behind it. And so creating these spaces where they can feel safe and feel secure and being who they authentically are and not being judged negatively for it. As you mentioned before, so often Black women are taught resilience.
Yeah.
I hate that word resilience. And they're taught to just keep pushing and bounce back. And often they're not validated in what they're feeling or thinking, and they're not given a safe place. And so it's important that we recognize that they're not even offered those things. So as we're approaching Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, recognizing that Black women need to hear the voices of validation. They need to hear the voices of softness. They need to be presented in ways that do not always challenge them and, in fact, empower them. And then we need to recognize that the experiences of Black women are unique.
Yeah.
A Black woman going to the grocery store is not the same as another culture of woman going to the grocery store. And we don't give that space for that Black woman to talk about what it was like to go to the grocery store, or what it was like to go to the doctor, or what it was like to go for a job interview. And it's different than some other woman of another culture.
I resonate with that deeply because growing up and like even to this day, like I struggle with this idea of like I have to filter my feelings or filter my how I present in a way, like in the sense of like if I'm feeling sad or if I'm feeling angry, upset about something, I have to like take a moment and process that so that the person who I'm around can digest it easier. And like by that point, like those feelings, they don't go away magically, but they just kind of get like suppressed in a sense or like covered up and not addressed. And so something even by my work here is like I've been really practicing is just like how to just like feel my feelings unapologetically and like take up space with feeling those feelings. Cause I know for a lot of people, Black women in particular, like this idea of taking up too much space and like being too much or being too loud or being too angry, like you just want to be able to feel something and you want to be able to know that like what you're feeling is valid and what you're feeling is okay even. And like it shouldn't be like with these any other negative connotations and just like having this be like a theme that so many of my friends have experienced, my family has experienced, like really just being like this sad epidemic of just like mental health with like they're just like not being able to really be your true full self. So yeah, no, I resonate completely. Okay, for like some like just like the nitty gritty of it, like do you know if there's like I know we talk about like Black women having like a unique experience, but like is there unique pressures or challenges that Black women are facing when it comes to mental health and especially like suicide risk?
Yeah, like Black women face an immense amount of pressure, and it stems from just life responsibility. It stems from caregiving roles. Then you add into that microaggressions. Think about what's unique for a Black woman, and then you intersect that with race. So we're intersecting race and gender. Now you add sometimes socioeconomic status barriers, systemic inequalities, a lack of culturally competent care. All those intersections just create a unique dynamic for a Black woman. And so, like, how do we respond to that is important, but just recognizing that that's what it presents for a Black woman, because not many cultures give the responsibility of life that the Black culture gives to the Black woman. Not many cultures give the responsibility of caregiving that the Black culture gives to the Black woman. And then to have to enter places and respond to microaggressions as if it didn't happen, to be resilient and bounce back and ignore it, to not be able to be my authentic self. And all of those things are happening while I still have to be the mom or the both parents or the director of something or whatever it may be. I still have to show up and be that person. So it's hard for that Black woman to hold the space for all those things and then have the energy to continue to advocate for themselves when you're constantly being faced one after the other of whatever that may be. So just recognizing that we have a safe space to release those burdens. And that is what suicide prevention awareness is for a Black woman, is it becomes a safe space for them. They can be able to recognize that suicide risk is real. And it's not just something for another culture. It's real in my culture. My feelings of exhaustion, my feelings of not wanting to get out of bed are not just because I work too hard. It's not just because I need to take some more time to rest. It can actually be a diagnosable illness and then leading to suicide ideations, and we're not recognizing it because we're taught to just bounce back. We're taught to not feel all those feelings. And so we don't get to fully embrace what it is we have going on inside of us. So then we think, oh, that doesn't affect our community. That's not something I'm dealing with. When in reality, you're following exactly what the textbook says it is.
Yeah.
You're just not giving yourself the space to feel it.
Mm. No, I think that ties in so much to this idea of like this like Black woman is a superwoman, like resilience, like, oh, strong Black girl, magical Black girl, and like this like kind of like making this it takes them away from the humanness of it in the one sense. Like we have to be higher being or like this like just like this like like, it's just let me just be human. Let me just be a person, like, I'm just going through it as anyone else would, and, like, it really does add to, like, sometimes the stigma both in and outside of our community of, like, a lot of times Black women are the matriarchs of their family, and a lot of times they are the ones who are taking care of everything, and then also a lot of times people go to Black women for comfort, or they go to them for creativity, or they go to them for some type of nourishment. And like this idea of like, well, who is taking care of Black women? And
Mhm.
who's up for them? So like, how do you see like in like the work you do, like you talk like does it look different for Black women as opposed to other people like from ideations to just like the act of suicide? Like when they're like, oh, there are no signs, but like are there signs that like we should be paying attention to in that sense?
I think there very much are signs we should be paying attention to. And I think those signs present different in a Black woman because it's the in we're taught, textbook version is we're taught it's the isolation, it's when they start to sell their things or when they start to get rid of things that may be important. And while those are all valid textbook signs, did you also recognize that they're no longer responding to events? They're no longer coming and showing up? Because that's a sign in a Black woman is when she's too exhausted to come to the events that she normally would be present for, then maybe we need to check out what's going on and why she's not showing up. Is she not taking your phone calls as often? Maybe now you used to call every day and now you call every other day because she doesn't answer the calls anymore. So just recognizing how she is showing up different even for herself,
Mm,
because then you can know how to show up and be more present for her. I like that you bring up the point of Black girl magic and how the Black woman is just this supernatural being or expected to be this supernatural being. And that's a big part of what is going on is like, I can't be my authentic self if I have to show up as this superhuman person. And while internally Black Girl Magic is a great hashtag and a great approach to things, it creates this unrealistic expectation externally. And so it's almost like I don't want you to use that term outside of the culture because you don't understand all the work that goes into it.
mm,
And so just recognizing that there's, as you mentioned, internal stigma, internal education, external education, and they both are very valid and real. The internal stigma, sometimes it's harsher than the external
yeah,
stigma. Sometimes I, as a Black woman, have more fear of being judged by those closest to me and in my shared spaces than of the people who don't understand.
yeah.
And it's because those people have relatable stories. They understand. And they'll look at me and say, well, I did all that and I overcame it. Instead of saying, wow, she went through all that just like me. Let me go support her. And that's what happens in the internal stigma. And it's hard to overcome that. And then you have to go fight the external stigma of, the bias in healthcare, the microaggressions, the racism that you may encounter when you go out in public. And you don't have an inner circle or now an outer circle to keep dealing with it. And that's when the opportunities for suicide ideation comes into play and we don't recognize it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of times when I'm, like, either talking to friends or just experiencing life and, like, just trying to figure out, like, what is normal and what is okay to, like, share or what is okay to express or feel in a sense, because like, you wanna make sure that, like, your feelings are right and also valid and, like, this internal struggle of, like, "Am I having a hard day or is this, like, me not okay?" You know? Or, like, am I in the funk or am I, like, not, like, being true to myself in this journey of, like, kinda, like, self-discovery, but also like, self-care and, like, what
Mhm.
self-love like, and it looks different for everybody, and, like, this idea of knowing yourself and having people in your corner who know you as well, who are able to call you out, like, I know I was having, like, a bit of a hard time for a few weeks, and my friend, he so gently was just like, "Hey, you haven't really been sounding like yourself lately," you know? And in that moment, like, it just felt like, "Oh, like, someone is seeing me," you know? And, like, and, like, the idea like, what you were saying about, like, is she going to the events? And she's like, "For me personally, I like to stay very busy and keep my mind and my schedule very occupied," and I noticed that that was also, like, a coping mechanism or even
Mhm.
mechanism for me to not really sit with my feelings because I was just like, "Oh, I'm so busy. I have to do this, I have to do that," and, like, I'm just, like, constantly just having something on my calendar where, like, if I had any downtime, I would feel like I'm just, like, everything's, like, crashing in, you know? And so, something as simple as my friend just, like, naming it, like, "Hey, like, you haven't been yourself lately."
Yeah.
And, like, I was like, "Oh, okay, like, this is someone who I love and trust and who knows me well, and cares enough to say, like, 'Hey, just, like, checking in because like, you haven't.'" And just, like, that idea of, like, community is so important and having people in your community who are able to like look out and take care of you in that sense. So are there more examples of ways we are able to like help people who are like going through something and like not let it get to suicidal ideation and just like but still allowing them the space to like figure it out and like process their feelings in that way?
Yeah. I think it starts with a conversation, and that conversation can be a self conversation. So it's what you're talking to yourself, but it also can be what you're talking to the people around you. So, as a Black woman, are you saying these things to other Black women? And if you're not, then why aren't you? But are you saying them to yourself as well? So, like, you have to speak to others the way you speak to yourself. I think the messaging needs to come from a place that seeking help is not, or not seeking help is not a sign of strength. And in fact, it's actually a weakness. Being able to ask for help and reach out and tell your peers that I'm struggling, or to be able to ask, as your friend did, and say, "Are you doing okay? You're just not showing up the same way," is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of disrespect. It's a sign of I care. And just like you took it from your friend in that manner of, wow, they're paying attention to me, they see me, they notice me. So a lot of times what the Black woman does is they say, I need to put up the front and start showing up better, instead of having the self conversation of, I need to reflect and see what I'm doing. And if I'm, as you said, working in the space of busyness, so I don't have to deal with the feelings, I don't have to deal with the emotions, I don't have to deal with whatever may be going on, and have that conversation with myself. And once I establish the dialogue with myself or with my peers, then I can respond to what that looks like. Is it feelings of fear? Is it feelings of the reality of what I'm facing? And then go to, where do I go for help? Is this going for more therapy visits? Is this joining a support group? Is this looking at more self care activities? Is this reaching out to a family member? Like, then you can start to identify it. But until you have that conversation with yourself and identify what it is that you're feeling, what you're doing, you can't correct it if you don't know what it is.
Mm.
It's kind of like when your car's check engine light comes on, you have to go figure out exactly what it is before you can fix the problem. Otherwise, you're over here fixing your tail light and your check engine says you need oil. It's not going to work that way. And your mind and body function that very same way.
I love that. I feel so deeply with that idea of having that conversation with yourself almost because like the voice you hear the most is your own, and the ones that you like something I heard recently is like you have to start believing the stories that you tell yourself about yourself, and like if you're constantly just saying like, oh, like just speaking negatively on your life and who you are as a person, like you're registering all that information. You're taking that in firsthand, and so the challenge I've had in giving myself is like, okay, how can I speak positively and kindly with love to myself? And like, and just like, in even like the smallest of ways, of like, oh, like, you know what? You did a good job sending that email, or like, oh, like, look who made their bed this morning, like just like the smallest of things, like any win I could take, I'm going to give it to myself. 'Cause I just wanna, like, fill up that, like, that, emotional, like, deposit, that, like,
Yes.
amount of just, like, "Alright, like, I'm pouring into myself, I'm making this part of my practice," because if I keep saying, like, bad things or things I don't like about myself, like, I'm just gonna start believing it, and that's gonna have this negative, like, domino effect of just, like, how I feel about myself and how I present myself, and I can't really that's not really honoring myself in a way that's, like, giving life to me, It's
Mhm.
really
Exactly.
actually just draining me slowly, and I just
Yeah,
felt that before, and I don't wanna feel that again, so just finding ways to just keep on and, like, continue and, like, pushing through in a sense, but also knowing that, like, there's people I could go to for help, and there's, like,
yeah,
resources I can go to as well, and just making sure you're using that, and one thing I've been really focused on is, like, how can I be more vulnerable or how can I become more myself? And like part of that is just having the courage to share the things I don't always want to share, or things about myself that like I'm kind of scared about how it might be received, but like the right people will receive it. And you have to really just trust in that. And at the end of the day, if no one does, like you'll receive it, and like you have to trust in yourself to like, hey, I got my back. Like I'm gonna be good. Like in that sense. But it takes a long time to get to that spot. And it
it
takes a lot of
does.
effort and
It
it takes
does.
a lot of love and community and support, but it is I can say it is very much worth it to try, you know?
It is, and I love how you bring up the point of filling up your cup and celebrating yourself, and I say this all the time to so many people. If you know them, they'll be like, "Yes, she says that all the time." It's like, we have to celebrate every win we have in a day. I don't care what society teaches you as a win, you celebrate your win. So you know what? Today I woke up, that's a win. Today I brushed my teeth, that's a win. Today I took a shower, that's a win. Today I made my bed, that's a win. Like, society teaches us those are all just responsibilities and we're supposed to do them and we should have them done. And that's just part of adulting or being. When in reality, that's a space to celebrate. And so I don't know how you need to celebrate it, but it needs to be celebrated. If it's okay, I get to go have a extra drink from the local coffee shop, or if I get to go and sit outside in grounding activity for an extra minute, or whatever that may be. I personally have window markers and I write on my bathroom mirror all the celebrations that I'm having. I'd be like, woohoo to myself. No one has to tell me because my mirror is going to tell me. And that then I have the reminder of, you know what? I did the hard thing yesterday.
Mm.
And today, maybe it's not hard to get up and brush my teeth and take my shower. So, but yesterday it was, and I did it. I'm showing up as my 100% every day, but my 100% is changing every day.
No. Ooh. No, I think a key thing is acknowledging what was hard, acknowledging that that was a hard thing to do and a hard thing to accomplish, and like you said, every day is different and every day you show up differently, but, like, acknowledging that, like, I did something that scared me, I did something that was hard for me, I did something that made me nervous, and I did it, and, like, that even though, like, it may not have even been, like, the most perfect way you could have done something, but the fact that you did it, the fact that you started, the fact that you faced it, is, like, such an amazing accomplishment and deserves to be celebrated, and deserves to be celebrated with enthusiasm too, not just like, "Oh, yeah, I guess I did that," like, really just, like, you took care of it and you figured it out and you were able to just, like, own that, and I think that's so beautiful and so important. Suicide prevention is, like, often talked about as, like, an individual responsibility, like, "Oh, it's for that one person to solve," or, like, it's, like, something that's in your head and, like, you know? But how can, like, we shift it to a more collective, community-based approach?
I think the best way is to change the stigma, which starts with conversations. Like, we have to talk about it in every space. We go into all the spaces and we'll talk about any diagnosis. We'll talk about cancer. We'll talk about diabetes, but we're not going to talk about your mental health diagnosis. And I think that needs to change. The community needs to be more accepting of all the diagnoses. And once the community is more educated and aware, then we can create these safe spaces. There can be support groups and educational spaces and healing circles, but we have to be educated to understand how that happens. And education starts with conversation. Just like this podcast is educating and creating awareness, and the Loveland Foundation does that. That's where we have to start, and educating at the grassroots level. So where do we need to go to get the education in the hands of the individuals? Because they're not going to go seek it out. We're not taught generationally. We're not taught that that's something that is public knowledge. You know, we were oftentimes raised in a mentality of what happens in this house stays in this house. So we don't go ask for help beyond people in the house. And if no one in the house knows, then we can't grow in community to expand. So just making sure that we're educating ground level. So going into the churches, going into the schools, going into the community centers and teaching awareness and education. And we can do what I have learned is happening a lot is moving backwards. So we're multi-generational teaching mental health healing. So if I go to therapy, and the example is if I go to therapy and I become better, then I can teach my mom how to become better. And then my mom becomes better. And in turn, she teaches her mom to become better. And so we're teaching our generations before us, as well as showcasing to our future generations what it looks like to show up for yourself, what it looks like to be aware, and what it looks like to take care of yourself. And then it becomes relational and a shared opportunity for us. So then you have like your friend who shows up and says, "Hey, this is not looking like your normal self. How can I support you?" Or you're not sounding the same. What do you need from me? Maybe they just know how to show up for you and be like, "Hey, you didn't call me back yesterday, so I'm coming to pick you up and we're going to go to XYZ together." And they don't really give you the opportunity to say no because they already know what you need, because we've already had this education and awareness of what it looks like to show up for each other.
Yeah. Oh, no, conversations and community truly is the basis of so much of what we do. I remember when I first learned what suicide was, I was watching this show with my mom. It was called Unsung. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it was Donny Hathaway's episode. And yeah, and like they were saying that like he had like committed suicide. And I was like, asked my mom, I was like, what's that mean? Like, and she's like, oh, that means he took his life. And I was so like, I didn't understand it. I don't know how old I was at the time. I was young, but I was just like, why would he do that? Like, why? Like, my mom's like, he just wasn't happy, and like, he didn't know any way out except that way, but stuff like that. And I was just like thinking, like, oh, that's so sad, and like, oh, like, how could he, like, is there a way to, like, make it, like, how can we make him happy now? Or it's like, I wasn't really, like, sure in the concept of, like, death and, like, how suicide
Mhm.
worked that moment. And, like, they said he had a daughter. I was like, oh, is his daughter okay? Is his daughter happy? Will she do that too? And, like, I had all these questions for my mom, and, like, bless her heart, and she really was being so gentle with me in that conversation. And, like, she was just trying to watch her show, and I was supposed to be watching with her anyways, but I went to stay up late and watch with her. But, like, I remember, like, feeling such, like, a deep empathy for in that moment, just like, oh, like, we're seeing how talented and how beautiful he was and, like, all these things, and, like, he, I remember that stuck with me because I was just like, "Oh, I hope that, like, there's something that I can do to, like, make sure, like, that doesn't happen to anyone I care about," and, like, just having that understanding of it and, like, that impact of it, and just having that conversation be started, and, like, as I got older, I got to understand more how complex it is and, like, how, like, mental health works in that way. So, yeah, no, I really do, like, agree, like, conversation really is, like, the start and the basis of so much, like, even, like, for young kids.
Mhm. Yeah, age appropriate conversations go a long way.
So I know we talked about some myths, but like, are there any myths about suicide, like mental health in the Black community that you wish we would just like let go of and like that don't serve us anymore and never served us at all, really?
Yeah, as I mentioned, what happens in this house stays in this house is one that is very detrimental to the community as a whole. But there's also Black people don't die by suicide. That couldn't be further from the truth.
Mhm.
Um, and that prayer alone is enough. That prayer is great, and there's also the assistance of clinicians that make the difference for mental health diagnosis. I think it's just important to realize that suicide and most mental health diagnoses thrive in secrecy and fear. And so, if we can take away secrecy, fear, and isolation through education and conversations and awareness, then we can start to debunk these myths that have been created from long generations ago, that held true in previous times. They're just not true anymore. We're in a different time and space, and we have to respond accordingly to what our community needs from us now.
Mm, yes. Someone who's listening right now who might be struggling with suicide ideation and just like thoughts, what's like one thing you want them to hear and know?
I think that there's so many things that come to mind. I'm just like, come sit down, talk to me. I want to talk to you about all the things. But if I could give them one thing to take away, it's that your life has value, importance, and meaning, even if you don't see it or feel it right now. You matter so much.
Yes. And we want you here. Like, we really do. Um, yeah, it's interesting to like how the two kind of relate, but in this year where our whole theme is joy and joy being this act of resistance, joy being the way that we really take back our like our time and ourselves and like really take up spaces through our joy. And so I guess my question is like, what's the role of joy? What role does joy play when it comes to like combating or like even like just like taking and like going against like this idea of like suicide prevention? Like, how does joy play a role in that?
You know, I think that honoring your choice honoring your survival and choosing the joy is important. So just allowing yourself to define what your joy is. Today, my joy may be a meal, and tomorrow, my joy may be a bath, and the day after that it may be a walk. So
Mhm.
like not allowing someone else to define what my joy is, and so as I'm defining my joy, then recognizing that that is creating survival for me. So just as I mentioned that my 100% is different every day, my joy is different every day. And so finding my joy in each and every day because it may be different. So often we wake up and we think, oh, my joy is going to come in the same place it came yesterday. And then when it's not there, you're disappointed, you're confused. When the reality is your joy was meant to be found somewhere else that day, and you have to find it. Oftentimes, especially in the community of Black women, we don't recognize that joy may be in a nap or joy may be in setting a boundary and not answering that phone call or not responding to that email or not going to pick up that friend and giving them a ride somewhere. And then joy may be found in letting go of the guilt of all of that or the harmful narratives that follow. So just giving yourself the authority to choose your joy and then define it and let it change from day to day.
I mean, I can't think of any better words to close out on. Like, truly, just choose your joy, define it, and let it flow, let it change. I think that's really something to, like, live by because joy comes in so many different ways and looks so different for different people, and my joy today is different than my joy yesterday, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But no, Tatum, I'm so grateful for this conversation and just being able to share space with you. Like, it's been a long time coming. I'm so glad you're on this podcast with me right now, and I'm
Thank
just
you.
beyond grateful for you. if there's any way that like people want to like reach out or support, is there a way to contact you or have you be a
Absolutely.
resource?
I am the Alumni and Community Outreach Manager for Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center, and I can be reached. Their website is pathlightbh.com, or you can schedule a free assessment and let them know you want to talk to me. Assessment phone number is all on the website, but I'm there, and you just have to let them know that you heard about us and that you're looking for resources.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Tatum, and thank you to all who are listening. We see you, we appreciate you, and we're so grateful for you. All right.
Thank you, Rachel.
Bye. Thank you all for joining us for a very special episode of The Unfolding, presented by the Lovin Foundation. At the Lovin Foundation, we are committed to showing up for communities of color in unique and powerful ways, with a particular focus on Black women and girls. Our resources and initiatives are collaborative and they prioritize opportunity, access, validation, and healing. Since our founding, the Therapy Fund has provided financial support for therapy to over 13,000 Black women, girls, and non-binary individuals across the country. This year, our goal is to provide free therapy to at least 6,000 more. If you'd like to join us and invest in generational change, visit our website at thelovinfoundation.org for ways to give. To stay updated on new episodes and any future programming, follow us on Instagram and Meta, or check out our website at thelovinfoundation.org.